Well, a wonderful good morning, Friday good morning to you. It is, and welcome to another edition of To The Point for today, the third day of the month of June. Indeed, it's a pleasure being here with you. I'm Joseph Cadore, and I'm saying thanks for being part of this conversation. Wonderful good morning again to those of you that's on Classic Radio, 105.5 and 105.9 on the FM band. And thank you and welcome back to our viewers on GBN Channel 7, Channel 11, and Channel 20. If you are in cable, and certainly those of you chiming in via the World Wide Web on www.gbn.gd or via our social media platforms, be it YouTube or Facebook, a wonderful good morning to you. My guest this morning, and there's some people, you probably think you can say, here they are, but for protocol and duty bound to introduce her. But I think there's anybody that says they don't know who Daisy Hazzard is. But let's assume there's that one person out there that's probably joining us for the first time. She is the PR personnel for the Public Workers Union, Daisy Hazzard. Daisy, good morning to you and welcome to another episode of To The Point.
Good morning, Joseph, and thank you for having the PWU and myself on GBN To The Point this morning. Good morning to your listeners, viewers all across the Tri-Island State and the diaspora. We do have quite a lot to talk about today from the union's point of view.
Before we delve into how have you been transitioning into the current climate?
The current climate is one that we're paying very close attention to, because generally we see, unfortunately in the Caribbean and in Grenada, when unions seem to be most able to get gains for its workers, and when our country seems to be able to get things in general, infrastructure and all of that kind of a thing happening, things that we've been advocating for and clamoring for throughout a 4-year or 5-year period, somehow it seems that when the election comes around, this is when you see a flurry of activity. And so it almost seems as if during the election period, the government in office will use taxpayers' money, use the resources of the state to do things, to promise things to voters, all in a bid to receive votes. And they have to do what they have to do, and we also have to do what we have to do. It's very interesting times. We're hearing the use of our patois or vernacular quite a lot. Those have been spurring some other conversations and so on.
Right.
Yes, but we are keeping keen eyes on the election process.
Indeed, you must, because there's a lot that's being transmitted from all of those platforms. The intent, whether it is genuine or not, that's one conversation. And sometimes you say you either wait for time to reveal itself, or you can learn from history to make draw your own conclusions as to whether or not the utterances there's any basis to it. But you keep hearing, of course, on the heels of the election, the establishment of the election date, there was a conversation re-pension.
Yes.
There has been the issue, the conversation as it relates to the regularization of nurses, teachers, and it's interesting as we get into deeper, and closer to the date, which is literally 20 days away.
Yes.
Which is 20 days away. We heard about the regularization of senior nurses.
Yes.
Good news for you, for the union, or is it you thinking to yourself, nah, we're not buying this one?
So, JC, from the union's perspective, we have one mandate, and our mandate is to bring about gains and better working conditions in terms of employment for our workers. And so the election mandate is not our mandate. We have no dog or cat in this fight, in this race. And so we will never, ever stand in the way of workers being able to receive something or being able to be regularized in this case. We welcome it. We are very happy for it. What we will not countenance from the perspective of the PWU is any politician seeking to use our workers and make use, and when I say use, I mean make ill use of our workers to their own advantage, when you know that your intent may not be as genuine or as purposeful as you are trying to see to the public. And you said it right a while ago. In this instance, people may say, well, let's wait and see. Government is making these bold promises. Government is making these declarations. And so we owe it to them to wait and see. And history has a purpose. History teaches you about a person and a thing. It teaches you about your circumstance. We have seen this government, we have seen the NNP administration in office enough times within our history to be able to tell them, to be able to look at them and make decisions, make determinations about the things that they are saying, because they're very predictable. And predictably, whenever elections come around, they begin to say things, positive things in relation to workers. Now, the public will know, you will know, because we have been in your studios for the last 4.5 years advocating for our workers. Speaking about regularization, we went through a pandemic when our medical fraternity, the nurses and doctors, were the most important people in our society, saving our nation. And coming out of that, we were still clamoring for regularization. None of it happened. Our workers were given ice cream and cake. I'm using the jargon now. Last year, they were given for the first time Christmas parties. I think they were given breakfast one morning. That has never happened. When workers get a Christmas party, they pay for it. But now you are hearing, and we advocated, we begged the government at that time, regularize some of our nurses. Don't just give them horns, don't just give them noise or some food, but regularize some of our doctors, some of our nurses or maids or cleaners who have been working for donkey years, and lift the morale of this bunch of workers. That was not done. So what is happening now? It's about the election. It's about somebody's bid for re-election. It is really not about the workers.
That conversation with regularization, was that part of a consultative arrangement between union and the government, or the government just decided, you know what?
I believe,
confetti's in the air.
JC, that you have been listening in on our executive meetings, and you've been listening in to the conversations that we've been having with our members. Our union, our representation of workers is premised in the law. We have a place in the Constitution, and it is very wrong. It is very, very wrong when we see the employer and we see the government making moves towards our employees that has implications for their employment, for changing the terms and conditions of their employment without consultation with the union. And the government, what we've seen, what we've heard, just like you, we have heard it in the public. And we are here today to say to the public, to all of Grenada, the citizens of Grenada, and the government and the NNP administration, we have a purpose in this country as unions that is enshrined in law. We are the representatives of workers, and you have no right whatsoever to go about meeting with our workers to discuss with them changing the terms and conditions of their employment. That is the role of the union. We are the bargaining agent. Any minister of government, any PS, any administrator can meet with workers.
Right.
They have that latitude. What you cannot do in law is go about and unilaterally change their terms of employment without the union being present. And we are warning, not just the government, we are warning the senior administrators within the government service who are also our members, the PSs out there, who are acting as hatchet men for the government. And you see, the union has a difficulty because these persons are also our members. But we have come to the point now where we have to send a message and a warning to them. As a PS in a government ministry, you also have a role that is enshrined in law. And your role is not to act as a hatchet man for the politician. Your role is to carry out your duties according to the rules and regulations of the Constitution and what the of the PSC and what the Constitution requires of you as a PS in law. And what we are seeing now goes against the pale. And we are warning these members. We are warning these senior administrators.
How much of a concern has it been? Or is this a new frontier for you as the union? I know there's always a balancing act you play where the very people that you represent, some of them, as you said, they become the puppeteers. But there are those that would argue, though, that they're just doing what they get paid, they're being paid for as civil servants. That's their role.
And JC, the Constitution of Grenada, the laws of Grenada outlines the role of a PS. For instance, if a worker or any member of this society chooses to take the government of Grenada to court, it would not be a minister of government. It would be the PS. The PS is the person that is accountable for what happens in his ministry, the governance of his or her ministry in law. And so therefore we know that these members of our organization, these workers, senior workers, they have a balancing act in the sense that they have to work along with the ministers of government, the policy directors, the policy makers, and they also have to work along in the interests of the workers in the ministry. But that balancing act, where you fall in terms of how you can determine what am I doing here? Is it within the ambit? Is it within the law? Am I opening myself to some kind of a lawsuit? And I dare say that too many of our members at the senior level are allowing themselves to act as puppeteers on behalf of the government.
Is it a case whereby they say to themselves, whatever gains the union would realize first and would benefit either way? So let me take the benefit I can get from being part of the union, but yet enjoy the glory of being, as you say, the hatchet man for their
There's
bosses?
two factors at work here. And the union is not speaking about all PSs and all senior administrators. Let's get that very clear. We represent these members. But we've had to be mute because we've had to be saying to ourselves, these are our members also. But when you have one or two persons who are taking advantage of or using their authority or are allowing themselves to be used to take advantage of a mass of workers or a bulk of workers, as a union, we have to make a determination that we must protect the bulk of workers. But it comes back to the kind of individualism that this government, this administration has promoted, where you promote people on assignment. So a lot of our PSs are acting on assignment, or a lot of our PSs and senior managers and administrators have been handpicked by a politician, and so therefore they feel that their allegiance is to the politician, when their allegiance should be to the state of Grenada. You also see the case where so many of these workers are acting. And so therefore, because you have become comfortable in that position and with the remuneration that comes along with it, you do not want to jeopardize it, and you do not want to get a letter one day dismissing you back to your substantive, which lowers your standard of living and perhaps the authority that you hold in a ministry. So this is a game that this government has been playing.
So you say this is a deliberate ploy by the government?
It has been a deliberate ploy. We have seen it. The evidence is clear if we look back in this history, where government, where the ways that you wake up one morning and someone enters in your ministry and you're told that's the PS. Those things never happened in the system before, because there is a process. A PS, like anybody, if there is a vacancy somewhere, you apply for that position, you are interviewed, there is a scale by which a person is selected. But I don't want to focus on our PSs and our administrators so much this morning, because they are not the culprits. Some of them are allowing themselves to be used as house slaves, but they are not the culprits. The massa in this case is the administration. And we are seeing these deliberate ploys by the government and the administration to divide workers, to pit workers against each other, and to sort of a rule and conquer. And this is not what our democracy is about.
So let's look at what talk about what we've been hearing in recent times. So this week we had, was it Hannah St. Paul? She's one of the officials in there. And I remember her name in particular, but what was particularly interesting in the discourse, as part of that conversation, re-deregularization, they were looking at it. One said it was a 6-month period. The other one said later on in the year. And right there and then I started asking myself, is this something that's happening immediately? Or is this, as you say, a cat and mouse game where I bait you? So I'm like, make up your minds. Is it today, 6 months, or do they have to wait until the end of the year after election?
And JC, unfortunately, as the union rep, I have to say your guess is as good as mine. And what you have extrapolated from it, all of the public and the union is extrapolating this. We are seeing this thing. PS Hannah St. Paul has not had the decency, has not acted within her ambit to sit and have discussions with the unions. Even if your minister brings this to you, and we believe this is what has happened, and says to you, go say it in the public, hold a press conference. You are supposed to stand your ground. You are supposed to stand on your authority as PS to say, one, let me look and see how this benefits my workers. Is it a true benefit? Secondly, I know that I have a responsibility to speak with the union, because I, as PS in a ministry, I do not have the authority within law to change the terms and conditions of any worker unilaterally. And this is what we are seeing the Ministry of Health, PS Hannah St. Paul, attempting to do. We have had urgent calls from our workers. Our workers were summoned to a meeting on Wednesday. Our workers at the General Hospital, all classes of workers, doctor, ancillary workers and so. And they were told, we are reporting what they have said to us, that they were told by PS St. Paul, some of you who have been here as relief maids, your terms and conditions are going to change. Now, these people have been working in the service 19 and 20 years. Some of you who have been here on PS letters, you are now going to have to sign contracts, and you have to do it. It's not a question. We are even told that workers were told by one senior administrator in the Ministry of Health to shut up. And we have said to any worker, to every worker, and we are saying to every worker, a senior administrator does not have the right. They are disrespectful. They are out of order to tell you to shut up.
But is that Madam PR, as those accusations being confirmed, corroborated by anybody else, or you just blanket out?
No. We it's not accusations. As a union, we are not flies on the wall. So if the PS calls our workers into a meeting, it's not one or two workers, and have these conversations with them, the union is not a fly on the wall. We were not party to that meeting. The Ministry of Health did not see it necessary to pay us that respect in law. And so we have to go on the reports that we've had from our members, corroborated by not just one person, by many members who were there.
So where to from here the regularization of the nurses?
We want to make this point. What we are hearing about is not regularization, because regularization would mean, therefore, you are receiving a PSC appointment. For instance, on the books right now, there are 19 spaces for maids. There are only 2 permanent maids who are hired under the PSC. Yet we are hearing that these maids and cleaners are being told you will receive a contract letter from the Ministry of Health. A contract letter is not regularization. So we are hearing the politician on the platform and through the PS Ministry of Health saying to this nation, we are regularizing nurses and doctors. That is a fabrication. That is an untruth. I am saying it's an untruth, because regularization would mean that you're receiving a letter from the Public Service Commission, Grenada.
And this is not the case.
And it's not the case. We are understanding that and again, the union has not had benefit of discussions with the Ministry of Health, but we are understanding that there are some nurses who are being told, you're going to get the PSC appointment. There are some nurses who are coming over from Gren Case, apparently, which is an agency that hires nurses, into probably contract, and I'm saying probably, and letters from the Ministry of Health. We have not been able to verify this independently from the Ministry of Health, but from here, we will be making a beeline. As a matter of fact, while I am speaking, the union apparatus, my president and ES, they are feverishly trying to engage the Ministry of Health to get some answers to those questions. And we want to put it out there. If we cannot get answers in short time, in short order, we will take drastic action, because it is not a time when we are going to sit down and allow our workers, our suffering workers, to be used. These workers have been suffering. We have been making this case in the public and before the government, and here you are coming now to use these workers for your own benefit.
Let me ask you though, Daisy, we continue to hear of the lamentation of the concerns with the current state of our healthcare system. Mm-hmm. And we hear from different levels. We've heard talks about health insurance and all of these different things. How does all of these play out? And really and truly, some say it's almost like adding insults to injury in what is already a crippled healthcare system. This sort of behavior by our leaders, does it help in any way?
JC, if any Grenadian picks up the regulations that governs health, it will tell you what your ratio of health professionals are supposed to be in relation to your patients. It will tell you who are the doctors, should be registrars, house doctors, that sort of a thing. It is clearly spelled out and defined in different manuals and policy documents guiding the operations of Ministry of Health. What we have seen over the years is the dismantling, willful dismantling of all of these by the government. And where their advice and where their policy direction is coming from is clearly not from these accepted and legal documents. We do not know where it is coming from, but it's not good for Grenada.
Somebody's attempting to rule by an iron fist, possibly?
What we're seeing here is a determination by the government to take away the rights of workers to have union representation. So many of these nurses and workers, and so when they receive these letters and when they receive these contracts, the government does not pay NIS for them. The government pays no union dues or service contributions for them. And so you have workers who are vulnerable. We have come through our history from the 1950s to now, where labor unions and persons like Eric Matthew Gary fought for these rights. And in 2022, what we have seen progressively over the years is an administration and government who administrates to strip workers of those rights. Who administrates not to bolster those rights for our people, but to strip it away from them so that you can do what you want as you will with the workers, so that you can hire them and you can pay them what you want to pay them. so that the hatchet people that you have administrating can threaten them every day with the terms and conditions of their employment. And that is not good for Grenada. What is happening in the Ministry of Health is a microcosm of what is happening across the service in Grenada. And what is happening across the service in Grenada is not good for Grenada. The union is very careful. We have been very careful in terms of how we've been speaking, because we are not politicians. We have no horse in the race. But what we will not sit by and do this election is what happened in 2008. We will not sit by quietly, allow the government to use our workers. Government can do whatever it is they wish to do. Anybody in a competition or a race looks to their competitive advantage. But your competitive advantage must not just be, let me use these workers, make all these promises, say all these things, and when we get back into office,
we start it all over again.
We start all over again.
25 minutes gone past the hour in the morning time. In case you're just joining us, welcome to the program. My guest this morning is Public Relations Officer of the Public Workers Union, Daisy Hazzard. So Daisy, we've been hearing about the regularization of the nurses. Some 40, and those are senior nurses,
yes.
Right? So he didn't necessarily give a figure of. It doesn't necessarily that represents what percentage does that 40%, that 40 represent?
You're asking me to do math at this moment, and maybe one of my council members will send back that percentage number for you.
Because I would like to know, because you hear it in the public utterance, and you start thinking, 40.
No. The 40% so let me just say this without being able to quote a number. The 40% that government is speaking about
40.
represents a drop in the ocean. And that is why they are not giving you a number. That is why they are giving you a percentage. Because whenever people want to
make sure, though.
Yes.
Was it a percentage they gave, or they said 40?
They said, I think they said 40. You asked me for a percentage, but they said 40 nurses.
Right, 40, right.
Yeah. But what we're saying is right now, there are the bulk of workers, not just nurses. It's not just nurses. You have laboratory technicians. The hospital don't only run on nurses. We have doctors like Dr. Coy, who acts as a pathologist, has the qualification, but is not getting the pay or the regularization to that level. We have so many of our doctors. I think last count it was about 18 of them. We have all of our maids and cleaners, the adjunct and auxiliary staff. And I want to speak about the ambulance drivers. Mindful that we're already at 9:25. There is a situation again that is unfolding at the Ministry of Health. And we come back again to P.S. Hannah St. Paul. What are you doing? What is happening within your health sector and your hospital plant? Last year, the union was alerted by some of these workers, ambulance drivers, that the Ministry of Health and the government of Grenada was intending to change the conditions of their employment and place them on contracts. Let me tell you some of the details of these contracts. One, these ambulance drivers would not be eligible for vacation pay. They can apply for vacation at the end of a year, but they go on vacation with no pay. Secondly, no union dues will be paid for them. Thirdly, no NIS contributions would be paid on their behalf from the government. They would have to pay the NIS out of pocket. We made representation on behalf of these workers to the Ministry of Health. It was very alarming this week, or was it last week, when we received word from these members, ambulance drivers and so, that they got a call from the NIS indicating to them that the NIS contributions had not been paid for 5 months, and they therefore needs to come in to pay. So what you have here, it seems to have happened, is that the Ministry of Health, P.S. St. Paul, the government of Grenada went ahead, our ambulance drivers, and changed the terms and conditions of these workers unfavorably, without their knowledge, without their consent, and without recourse to their bargaining agent, the PWU.
But that has serious
It is serious implications. Very serious. And we are saying to the public, again, if we take drastic action, we want you to be mindful of what we are saying here to you today. It would not be because we are unreasonable. It would not be that we are against the government or any political or any administration, the NNP administration. But what this government is doing is further compromising the lives of the citizens of this country. If your ambulance driver is an independent service provider, it therefore means he can do his job when he wants to, how he pleases. Nobody can tell him you ought to report to work for 8 or 9 or 10 or 12. You give him a contract, and it is within his ambit to perform that contract. How dare you put the lives of our citizens at stake like this? How dare you offer conditions of work to employees in Grenada in 2020 that are so unfavorable and takes them back to plantation days? How dare this government?
Let me ask you a question. The pension contribution, and maybe we can speak to the laws that govern it. As far as I've always known, the employer makes a part contribution.
That's the NIS, yes.
NIS,
yes.
Yeah, and the employee pays whatever portion.
Yes.
Now, failure to pay, maybe I'm wrong, but you're breaching the law. I urge you.
And that is what the government has skillfully done.
You're breaking the law.
It's a Machiavellian kind of a thing that the government has done. So they could not refuse to pay NIS contributions for these ambulance drivers in their previous terms and conditions of employment, where they were employed perhaps with a letter from the Ministry of Health. They could not do that. So what they've done now is they've offered them contracts for service as if they are independent service providers. So you're building your house and you want a mason to run up 100 blocks for you. You say, listen, I'm giving you a job, run up 100 blocks. This is how our ambulance drivers are being paid. And within the law, that is legal.
Right.
Now, the government, the state of Grenada has recourse to hire persons on contract. The government can hire persons on contract, but that is also spelled out in law. It is not your persons who are doing the same function day to day in positions that are necessary. There is never a time when we will not require ambulance drivers. There is never a time when we will not require nurses. So in principle, it is illegal, and the Labor Code speaks to it, 29.5 and other sections like that.
So we sitting here and our leaders were expected, who took an oath to protect, to uphold the law.
Yes.
They are in plain sight, open view.
Yes.
They are transgressing the law.
Yes. And we are hearing again from on the platform, we are hearing now a lot about the IMF. So suddenly it's election time, and it seems as if the IMF is governance of Grenada, because we have not heard about IMF so much before. Now we are here, and we only can do what the IMF allows us to do. Now we do know that if our country's economy is under management of the IMF, that there are certain things, guidelines that the IMF will provide.
Correct.
Right? But the IMF cannot tell you to leave spaces, established spaces on your books vacant while people are performing the jobs with the qualifications and not to hire. The IMF cannot tell you to take hundreds and thousands of Grenadian young people and make them trainees and call them Imani workers, call them fly workers, pay them more than what you are paying cleaners and persons who have been there for many years to go to school, paying them to lime on the TAMCC campus in St. Patrick. The IMF cannot dictate that to a government. Government makes those decisions on their own behalf. So what we're seeing now is the government of Grenada is conveniently using the IMF as a clean sheet, as a blanket to cover all these dirty things, and to say to our society, there's so much that we cannot do. And the mess in the public service is because of the IMF. It is not because of the IMF.
29 minutes, 28 minutes actually onto the hour of 10 o'clock. We take a quick commercial break, Maggie. Very quick commercial break. And we'll be right back right here on To The Point. The most anticipated family fun-filled event on the GBN calendar is back. The Maggie King of the Grill. Join us on June 4th at Montrouge. Be part of the culinary masterpiece as the best grillers on island compete for the coveted title of the Maggie King of the Grill. Think you have what it takes? Be part of the action. June 4th. Book your spot. If not, step away from the grill. If you can't handle the heat. Maggie King of the Grill is sponsored by Maggie, Matuk's Barbecue Sauce, Rubis, Dasani Water, Calico Shopping Center, Duty Free Caribbean, and Siesta Hotel.
Prevent cold and flu by washing your hands with soap and water for at least 20 seconds. That's the time it takes to remove most germs. No soap and water? No worries when you've got alcohol-based hand sanitizer.
25 minutes on to the hour. Welcome back to the program. My guest this morning, Public Relations Officer of the Public Workers Union, Daisy Hazzard. Daisy, we've exhausted a lot of time on the regularization and what we, in our estimation, we determine to be a disregard to the law, breaking of the law. We'll table that for now. The pension.
Yes.
We've had a lot of discussion. Government saying, yes, we're going to pay, and all of a sudden, it seems as though you get in the sense that some people are jumping up. Well, who are we getting our money now? What's the latest on that conversation?
From the union's end, we are not saying hurrah. If the public recall, since we have had this pension judgment rendered, unions and government have not met. Government has met with a variety of people across the society, but unions and government has not met. Now, the government would say in its defense, well, we offered a meeting, and we have said to the government that when you offered the meeting, it was too hasty. It's as if you got up one morning and somebody said, let's meet with the unions. And that meeting was offered, I think, 5 weeks after the pension judgment was delivered. We had no understanding of what that meeting was going to entail, and so we therefore sought to get a response from government. We did get a response, I think, on the morning of what was supposed to have been the meeting, but it did not give the union adequate time to prepare for that meeting, and certainly we could not have gone into a meeting like that on behalf of our members unprepared, especially when we know that we are dealing with a government that behaves like a Nancy. We could not have gone into that meeting. To date, we have had no further requests from government to meet. But what we're seeing and what the public has seen is a lot of movement in the public domain about the pension. There are some alarming developments. One, about a month ago, Prime Minister announced in a national address to the nation the formulation of a pension committee. Again, unions had no say in that. We sat back like the rest of the public and we listened. Now, we heard the names of illustrious persons within their own respective fields, 3 persons being earmarked to be part of that pension commission and committee. And government said to the nation that we will wait on the recommendations of this committee. They have a mandate for 3 months. And when those recommendations come in, we'll have further deliberations. Now, on the eve of an election, again, as unions who won a matter in the court, we've seen the government say we will not appeal. And we saw some white papers and some green papers in circularization, just as the public has. When we've examined the content of those papers and the content of the promises that are being made on the platform, what we are seeing is that the government of Grenada is seeming to want to use the pension judgment that was secured in the court in law as the MOU from 2018. Let me repeat that. The utterances by government on the platform and in the papers that the unions have seen in circularization with no consultation with them seems to be an attempt by this government to use the judgment rendered by the court on March 22nd as the ill-fated MOU of 2018. Let me tell you why we say so. One, let's go into this one here. This one says pension 1985 to 2021, and it says all outstanding pension payments to workers who have retired long before 2022 will start receiving their payments through a phased approach based on national cash flow. Now, when the administration tells you that, from your historical knowledge of them, based on national cash flow, we know that once the election is over and done,
money stops flowing.
Money is going to stop flowing. Right now it is flowing. So we are saying to this administration, our pensioners, our suffering pensioners who have retired, and they didn't retire in 1985. That again is a lie. It's a misconstruction of the truth. There is no person who, affected by pension, would have retired in 1985. They would have started working in 1985. And so thereafter became affected. Most of these persons would have, if you calculate, would have started retiring around 2012. But nobody retired in 1985. Because the persons prior to 1985 were duly covered under the law and received their pensions. So when we see 1985 to 2021, you are trying to conflate this thing to make the period so huge. The period of time in which the pension laws were struck down was from 1985 to 2022. Now it has been reinstated. Now you're talking about national cash flow. We are looking at this at another one here that says the legally accepted retirement age of 60. Now, Dr. Mitchell, Prime Minister of Grenada, I see you smiling on this poster. And I want to tell you something this morning. There is no legally accepted age of 60 alone in the public service. There is a mandatory retirement age of 60 in the public service, and I think across Grenada. But in the public service, it's mandatory. When you get to 60, they tell you to go. The only fortunate persons who are able to come back into government and get lofty contracts are the persons who, again, government believe can act as hatchetmen for them. That's what we have seen. So a poor retiree who going to beg the government, and there's many workers who have done that and said, I still owe mortgage, I'm not going to get a pension, I'm not going to get a gratuity, please let me work for another 2 or 3 years. In every single instance, the PSC has said no. Now, based on our pension laws, which have just been reinstated in 1958, there are 5 different pension acts that covers the public service, that covers prisons, that covers police officers and other categories of public servants. There are different age and times when public servants can legally retire, not receive a pension if they're not yet 60, but get a gratuity. We are seeing this paper only talking about pension. And we are saying to Prime Minister Dr. Mitchell and the government of Grenada and the people of Grenada, our pension restoration has 2 parts. It has a gratuity and it has a pension. Now, back in 2018, all the government wanted to talk about was pension, a monthly pension payment. When they came back into office, and when we had that whole debacle at the end of 2018, and you had the workers striking and pay or docked, again, the government was talking about only a monthly payment. There is a gratuity in law that a worker such as myself, who has already made 26 and 8 months in the service, can choose to retire and get my gratuity. I will have to wait until I'm 60 to receive a pension. So government is conveniently not talking about gratuity at all, and has conveniently put out a message there to the public indicating a retirement age of 60. That is false. There's places where workers can retire after 20 years. You have 26 and 8. You have about 4 different caveats where workers can retire ahead of 60, get your gratuity, and when you get to 60, then you receive monthly payments. We are watching you, and we will not wait until elections are over for you to dock our salaries again.
We have a caller that's on the line, Daisy. Good morning, caller. You alive?
Hey, good morning.
Yes, go ahead, please.
Daisy? Good morning. I'm Mr. Marshall here, Franklin Marshall. You know me.
Thank you, Mr. Marshall.
I love the way you deliberate. You're eloquent, you are straight to the point, and no mistakes about it. The question about pension. This qualification law came into effect in April of 83 and confirmed in 85. And people affected would have been qualified for pension by 2012. 2012, add 27 years to that. 2012. So the big bulk of money that the government said is owing to pensioners, it's a big lie. It is a big lie. And let us get it straight. I am sure by this month, all the 15 politicians, of maybe 4, about 14 of them, would be getting their gratuity. And public workers' gratuity is on a loan from the government. I started working in 1960. I retired in 2003. And I got my gratuity of about $97,000. And $600 and something was subtracted from my salary every month for 12 and a half years. After 12 and a half years, that is around the year 2016, I got back my full pension. So the big sum the government talking about that this pension and gratuity will cost, it is in no way what we are saying.
Thank you, sir.
Daisy, keep on explaining to the public. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Is somebody deliberately trying to fool us, Daisy? Or is it that we, the general public, we're getting it terribly wrong because we live in a different dimension?
Thank you for that question, JC. And thank you, Mr. Marshall. And you were my lecturer at TAMCC, so I learned from the best. We want to talk about the 3,000 plus workers within the public service that government withholds service contributions or union dues for. They do not pay the union for these 3,000 plus workers. Among that bunch, perhaps about half of them or more, government pays no NIS contributions for them. And yes, I think the public hears the union and they hear us speaking and they understand only the tip of the situation. And so there is an attempt, a deliberate attempt on the part of this administration to explain away the things that they do that are in direct contravention to the law and directly affects our workers indiscriminately and put them at a disadvantage as a means of their employment. Yes, we can say yes to that. What we're seeing here again is an attempt by the government to use workers again for your own benefit and not to the benefit of these workers. It's a convenient time. They are using it to their advantage, but we are not satisfied that what is being said on platforms, what is being said in social media, what we are hearing PSs and so saying, we are not satisfied that those things will happen as said.
Another caller on the line. Good morning, caller. You're live.
Yes, Mr. Cadore, good morning, and good morning to that beautiful lady. Sister, I just want to tell you, God bless you. I want to tell you to pray, ask God to protect you, to cover you, because what you might have to face for your stance and for your genuineness and for your honesty, for not letting the Grenadian people be fooled like the government is fooling them. God, but you must pray. Ask him for that protection and continue to serve your nation. I don't know why you didn't run for some party or the other for the leadership of this country, because you would be a good leader. God bless you. Thank you. All the things you have said are very, very true. God bless you.
Thank you, caller. I'm not sure there was that premonition, prophecy, something yet that we're missing. We'll have a conversation next election, in the election cycle for sure. Right, Daisy?
Good morning. Good morning, caller, and thank you for your comments.
Daisy, looking ahead, we have all of these, they are the external shocks that we have little or no control over. But it seems to be a bit mind-boggling and really, really is almost like is there any hope for us as a people when you get the sense and you're hearing that the people that we've elected, I'm saying we collectively, to serve our active interests, when you get the sense that they seem to be committed to a task that is separate and apart to that which we the people have mandated them to serve.
Right. JC, I don't think anybody can deny
that the role of a politician, the role of a minister of government, and the role of a government to manage this country, to manage the resources, to take us through the hard and difficult times, to help us as a people to absorb all of these external shocks and still be able to live comfortably in our country. I do not think that anybody can deny that is difficult. I've listened to my dear friend and colleague, Jonathan Lacrette, who is now a nominee, a candidate for St. George's Northwest, a constituency in which I live, speak about Prime Minister Dr. Mitchell and thank him for his stewardship of this country and the sacrifice that he has made. I think it's been 38 years or more in politics and also as Prime Minister of this country. And so nobody can deny that politicians and our ministers of government have to make sacrifices. And perhaps when we are asleep at night, they are up trying to determine how to keep this country afloat and going. Right. But what we are saying is that even while we are absorbing these shocks and we are preparing as a country to continue to go on as a nation, a lot of what government is doing directly opposes. A lot of what government does in secrecy and in silence directly opposes the thrust of our nation and the work that they do in the public to take our country forward. And the destabilization of the public service is definitely a destabilization of the state of Grenada.
10 minutes, 12 in fact, onto the hour. We have another caller on the line. Good morning. Caller, you're live.
Good morning, Mr. Cadore. Good morning to your esteemed guest.
Good morning, sir.
It's interesting that the guest is referring to issues that have been belabored over the years, including the rule of law and the fact that some people don't know what is their authority. I mean, people are overstepping their authority in the system. And there's a few things I want to ask you, Mrs. Union Lady. You have a situation where there's an absence of heads in certain key departments, like I can tell you in forestry, I can tell you and I think right now it's going to be in agriculture. These are key areas. I mean, what it is that, wouldn't that be demoralizing to the workers who are looking for leadership? And I know that because some of them talk to me. What can we do about that? Secondly, in terms of, I'm doing a course with Columbia University and some other people now, and it was for people in the health sector. I was fortunate that I was put on by a certain nurse on that course. Reported. She couldn't attend because she became depressed because of overwork. I'm also told that there in many health facilities around the island, there's a shortage of nurses or personnel because people are either full with corona or something like that, or there's migration. What are we doing to this situation? We have to really do something dire need of bringing back law and order in this place so that thing will be done according to both the Constitution and the law. Finally, because there's quite a few things I could say. We have to be mindful that what we do, it is said that we are not punished for our sins, but we are punished by our sins. We supported the invasion of Grenada by the Americans. That severely affected the pension scheme. And now, according to the figures of the government, it's really over $500 million we had to pay for that sin of supporting the American invasion. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, caller. Daisy?
Yes. So I want to respond this way. We know that there are many departments and positions within the public service that are not filled. In many of those cases, persons are acting. In some of the cases, the administration has just refused to put persons in those positions. Again, we are hearing the administration using the blanket of the IMF to excuse away those things. Those positions are established positions, are positions that are budgeted for, have already been budgeted for this year, years before, and yet those positions remain unfilled. There is no justification for it. There is no reason for it. You have people performing the jobs and functions every day. They also have the qualification. I made mention of Dr. Coy, pathologist at the General Hospital. So it's not that they are not persons within the service with the qualification, the experience, the requisite, whatever it is that you need to fill those positions. What you have is that government just willfully and wantonly refusing to fill those positions, although they are on the established books. So thank you, caller, for making that point.
Daisy, we're almost at a time. It is 8 minutes on to the hour in the morning time, and I know an hour doesn't in any way form or fashion. As we get ready to wrap up, what would be your word of caution to your membership? But before we do that, we probably will entertain this caller. Good morning, caller. You're live.
Good morning, Joe.
Yes, go ahead, please.
Good morning, Miss Hazzard.
Yes.
First, I would like to say, thank God for Daisy Hazzard. At one time, I thought everything was lost in this country. I've been away from here since 1958, and when I got back, I realized that things were not going the way it should be going as far as workers are concerned. Plus, the people who at one time said we supported and represent workers all seem to have been bolted to what they call greener pastures. But you are there, you are not only beautiful, but you are the type of persons that, a country like Grenada needs. I hope it won't happen like it has happened in the past. People you put your confidence in bolted. But I don't think it's going to happen because I think you are right on track, and you are going to be serving the Grenadian people the way that they require someone to be. And I always pray, when I see you on the TV, listen to you on the radio, whatever, I always say to myself, I wish that there were more people like Daisy Hazzard in Grenada. We would be making better strides.
Thank you, sir.
Have a good day and all the best. God bless you.
All the best to you, sir. Daisy, we're on the home stretch to elections, home stretch to today's episode. What's the message, the final message to the membership?
Thank you, caller. And before we get to our final message, we must speak about, there's so many issues that we really wanted to touch on here this morning. We've touched on the tip of some of them. We must speak at the issue of TAMCC. As the public would know, the workers at TAMCC, our workers have been, this is the third week of industrial action. And the GOT workers are also engaged in industrial action. And that is is because these workers have not received any kind of salary increase for 10 years, and they are still owed incremental increases from 2019. Our union has been engaging with the college, engaging with the council through letters, through meetings to bring this to a resolution. After we went through that process, we took industrial action. Yesterday, we saw a disrespect meted out to our workers on Wednesday. And to the union, again, this is a recurrent theme, it seems, under this government, by the college, by the principal, Mr. Brunton, by the chairman of the council, where some workers went onto their bank accounts and realized that they had seen money that they did not know about. And in calling up their banks to say, what is this money on my account? They were told this payment came in from the college. Subsequent to that, the college wrote an email to workers indicating to them that they had posted to their salaries, to their accounts, increments outstanding for 2019. This is the most blatant disregard and disrespect to the union and to workers, because we are the bargaining agent, again, in law. And it appears that the principal of the college, Mr. Brunton, does not seem to understand his mandate and does not seem to understand the mandate of the union. But he came from Trinidad. And Trinidad is even ahead of Grenada in that there is an industrial court. So, Mr. Brunton, we want to let you know in Grenada, we are the representatives of these workers. We are the union, and we do so in law. And so we are cautioning you, watch your steps. Because the disrespect that our workers faced on Wednesday, when monies were just slapped into their account, that is not going to pacify them.
But
that is not going to...
me, though, disrespect, because some people may be asking, well, they wanted their money, they got their money.
There is a process.
Right.
You want your money, you get your money. If somebody owes you money, JC, and you wake up one morning and you saw that they took it and they fling it into your yard,
right,
that is disrespect. There is a process. Of course, the workers want their money. Nobody's going to sneeze at it. Nobody's going to say, I'm not going to spend it. But the workers have dignity. And at all costs, you have to treat your workers with respect. You cannot treat your workers as if somehow you are the master and I feel to fling $2 at you into your account and therefore I can do so. Again, the union is a legal bargaining agent for these workers, and we are engaged and have been engaged with the college on this matter. Industrial in action is part of that process.
Help us to appreciate, though, in a shorter time as you can, succinct as you can, what would normally be, what the process would be?
Normally, what would happen is that the college would signal to the union, look, we are willing to make a payment, or we can make a key payment of X amount for this year. It is not the total, it does not satisfy the total commitment.
Right.
And so the union would therefore say, let us go back to our workers, and we're going to have a conversation. But I think the attempt is to shut the workers up in this election period, and that is not going to happen. They are angry. They feel very disrespected, and so they are not going to back off their industrial action. You have to deal with them through the union properly so.
And again, we continue to hear the conversation as attempts to nullify.
Yes, to nullify the role of the union. So even the regularization of nurses and contract work, even you hear government boasting about the GDB loan for contract workers, which I want to tell the public, a lot of these same workers, not just contract workers, contract and unestablished workers, still cannot get the GDB loan. One worker sent me a voice note to say, Miss Hazzard, I am told that, and I want to say it this way, my partner, and she said to me, my man, has to sign with me in order for me to get this loan because my salary is so small. GDB wants to work with her, but the terms and conditions that the Ministry of Finance, the government of Grenada, laid down for this loan, many workers have gone to GDB and just can't get it. So again, you see, if government sat with the union to discuss all of this, we would be able to guide them. But you see the government seeming to want to inch out the union and bring benefits to workers, suppose benefits outside of the union. So now the workers must genuflect and glorify them and say the politician gave me, the minister gave me, and not the union. But it's because of our work. If we do not speak, if we do not agitate, if we do not advocate, nothing will happen for our workers. We are convinced of that.
If this is allowed to continue, Daisy, where do you see Grenada?
I want to say to the citizens of Grenada, we cannot allow this to happen, because as we see with the pension matter, right now the pension debate and the contract worker debate is the dialogue and the debate from our election platforms, which tells you the importance of the public service and what we do as unions for all of Grenada. We set the market. We set the standards in the labor market. We set the premise out there for employers in the public service and in private homes and institutions, and so to say, I cannot do this, or these are the things I ought to do for my employees, because there's a labor movement out there that is watching. And so as citizens of this country, as a nation, it's not just a public worker issue. The issues that we've raised here this morning has import for all of Grenada, and every citizen of this country must be concerned. So we want to say, in wrapping up, our feet is on the gas. We are not going to let up. Just as this administration believes that the election cycle is when they can put everything out there to gain voters, we are looking to what you are doing and saying about our workers, and we will respond appropriately, because we will not stand by and allow ourselves to be used. And our pension issue, again, we are not going back to 2018. We will not do it. We've won a judgment in the court. It is time. Pensioners should have already received in their accounts their gratuities at least. They should have received that, because it's almost 3 months since the judgment came in, and government has the money. Government has the resources, as they've been saying to the public now. Leave the country in safer hands, because regardless of what happened, we are going to find ways. Find ways. We know that you can, to begin to pay the pension now, today.
Our foot is on the gas.
Yes.
That's where we leave the conversation. The final words resonating from the lips of the public relations officer of the Public Workers Union. Our foot is on the gas. Grenada, this is where we leave the conversation for today. Indeed, it's always a pleasure being here with you, being part of the conversation. Well, today, Friday, is the end of the work week for some. And indeed, we say thanks for being part of this conversation. Thank you. Those of you, those radio and television, those of you on social media, indeed, it was a pleasure being here with you. And reminding you that tomorrow, the one and only thing, Daisy, remind me where you need to be tomorrow. What's the biggest event that's taking place tomorrow? Grenada?
Tomorrow is Saturday.
Yes.
I think the rallies are on Sunday. It's election. All we are talking about in Grenada at this moment is wait a day.
Well, you know what? I think it's
and our workers are saying, we were there. We have been laboring for all these years. We have been there.
I don't know much about what Daisy's talking about.
We have been there.
But I can tell you tomorrow.
What's happening tomorrow?
King of the Grill, Daisy.
Oh, yes. Tomorrow we're going to be eating barbecue.
Tomorrow we'll be eating barbecue.
It's one of the best programs that GBN has ever produced.
Drinking the sunny water. Seasoning up food with Maggie. With a nice generous drizzle of Matook's barbecue sauce from Huggins. For those of you that's using gas, we gas it up with Rubis, drinking water, minding our business, and we try to put our troubles away for a few hours tomorrow, but life is going to continue.
We are going to be at King of the Grill tomorrow.
King of the Grill. Until then, JC loves you. From all of us, you take care. God bless.